we go. Fab. So welcome to tonight to our parent phonics evening. So hopefully this evening, by the time we've finished, you will have an understanding of why phonics is taught in reception and Key Stage 1 here, to understand how we teach phonics at Parbold Douglas, and to know how you then can support your child in their phonics development at home too. So before we go on to what phonics is and how we teach it here, I sort of wanted to give you a bit of an overview of how children learn to read in their reading development. So the stages that you might see at home. So the first stage is pre-alphabetic. That's where children don't have any understanding or letter sound correspondence. But what you may notice that they do is they may sort of read logos when out and about. So they might walk past a stop sign, for example, and say, oh, that says stop. And you'll be like, oh, wow, they can read. But actually, they're not actually applying any sound knowledge. They're just using the fact that the words are on a stop sign to inform them that that says stop. If they were to see stop, say, in a book or in a newspaper, they wouldn't then be able to see that or read that as stop. So they've no letter sound correspondence there at that first stage. At the second stage, it's then the partial alphabetic. So children have some letter sound correspondence and they're starting to apply it correctly, but not always accurately. So for example, a child might read the word got, got, and they then might go and see another word beginning with a g or a g, and they'll think that that says got as well. So at that stage, they have some letter sound correspondence, but they're not accurately applying it. The third stage is full alphabetic, and then that's when they know a lot more sounds and they're starting to accurately apply those sounds that they know with increased accuracy. So they'll read a word at, and they'll know all the sounds within that word, and they'll be able to apply it accurately and then blend the word cat. And they'll be able to do that for a lot of words. We then get to the fourth stage, which is the consolidated stage. And that's the stage where children start to move away from reading robotically, which you might hear when they are learning to read, and they're not then relying on each individual sounds. The children are now reading in letter clumps. So if you take the word like bright, night, light, the children are, sorry, I'm just going to let somebody in, bear with me. There we go. The children are now reading in letter clumps rather than individual sounds, and that's a step towards fluency. So they're not dependent on reading every individual sound. They're looking at clumps like the "ite" within light, night, and bright, and being able to recognize that clump allows them to read that word much quicker. This also helps because it's taking them towards that next final stage, the automatic stage, which is where children read fluently and they have then more cognition for comprehension. So in the stages before, the children are using a lot of brain power, a lot of cognition in decoding each word, that it doesn't leave much brain power left over for them to then comprehend what they're reading. So you may find that when children are at those earlier stages and you're reading with them at home, they may not be able to necessarily understand what they're reading because of how much cognition it's taking them to read each word, applying those sounds. But as we move to stage 4 and stage 5, when reading becomes much more automatic, their brain power is more available so that they can start to comprehend what they're reading too. So that's a brief overview of the different stages that the children will move through during their reading development. So it sort of gives you an overview of their journey and what their journey will be like as they move through school. Okay, so why do we teach phonics? So phonics is the foundation of reading and spelling for our children within school. Phonics enables children to develop really strong reading and spelling skills, and that's our fundamental purpose within phonics within Parbold Douglas. We want every child to be able to read fluently and to enjoy reading, and phonics gives us that really strong foundation to do that. And at school we use a phonics scheme called Read, Write, Ink. So you'll be pleased to hear that because this is on Zoom, there is no audience participation like normal. So you can sit back and relax knowing that you don't have to join in. But I'm going to give you a brief introduction to what phonics is, because I know many of us won't have learnt to read using phonics, so it can be a bit alien to us. So I'll just briefly go through it. And if you do have any questions, by all means, unmute yourself and just jump in and ask. So all words are made up of sounds. So for example, if you look at the screen, you can see the word cat. Cat is made up of 3 sounds, k, at. You then look at shop, and shop again is made up of 3 sounds. However, within that word, the S and the H are working together to make one sound, sh, up. Then we've got light, again, it's got 3 sounds. However, the I, G and H are working together to make the I sound, l, I, t. And then we've got phonics at the end, and that's got 6 sounds, f, n, I, k, s. And the P and the H are working together to make the sound. So phonics, we teach the children to read based on the sounds that are within the words. However, it's a little bit tricky because there are 44 sounds in the English language, but there are only 26 letters in the alphabet. So that means to solve that problem is that those 26 letters can be used in lots of different ways. They can be used on their own, in pairs, or in threes. So if we look at the word cat, you can see that that word is made up of individual single sounds, k, at. Each letter in that word is making one sound. So that's called a graph. Don't worry about the technicalities of these terms, it's okay. And then we can also work in pairs. So if you look at shop, the S and the H is working together in a pair. That's called a digraph, and that's making one sound, sh, up. And then they can also work in threes. So if you look at light and white, we have trigraphs in there. Sorry, not in white, in light, we've got a trigraph. The I, the G and the H are working together to make one sound. I'll just jump back to the in pairs one, the 2 sounds, where I missed that we do have split digraphs as well, which can be quite tricky for the children. So if you look at the word white and the word hide on the screen, you can see that the split digraph is the I sound, and it's split with the T in white and the D or the D in hide. So to overview, we can have single sounds like in cat, we can have sounds that work in pairs like the sh in shop, and we can have sounds that work in threes in trigraphs like in the word light. Just to make it even trickier for the children, all of these sounds can be spelt in more than one way. So if I show you now the complex speed sound chart, you can see all the different ways to spell the sounds that the children will learn. So if we start with the S sound, you can see that it can be spelled with its initial sound on its own, in sat. It can be spelled with 2 S's in dress. It can be spelled as with SE in horse, with a C in circle and a CE in peace. So it's very tricky for the children. And again, if we take the E sound, that can be spelt with the digraph or the special friend E in sleep, with a Y at the end in happy, EA in dream, and then on its own, it can be spelled he, she, we with an E on its own. So it's very, very tricky. And that's the reason why we have to have a really clear structure on how we teach the children the sounds in school. So the national curriculum states that schools are to teach phonics systematically. That means sounds are taught and built on in order. And we are able as a school to choose the best way to teach phonics to our children. And recently the Department for Education have validated phonics schemes, and we do use a Department for Education validated scheme, which is Read, Write, Inc. So I'm going to go now over give you an overview of how we teach phonics at Parbold Douglas. So like I said, we follow a scheme called Read, Write, Inc. We use our friend Fred to help us within the lessons, and that's our main teaching resource and our only teaching resource for phonics. The children are then taught in homogeneous groups tailored to the sounds that they are learning. So the children are in small groups where they are supported in their next steps with the sounds that they need to know. And children read as well phonetically matched reading books. That means the reading books that the children send home only ever have the sounds that they have been taught within them. This allows them to practice and apply the knowledge they have and develop fluency. And then children are also regularly assessed every 6 weeks so that we can monitor progress and address any gaps quickly to make sure they have the best support in becoming fluent readers. There is a video now, hopefully it will work for you all. I won't play it all, it's just an example of how the sounds should be pronounced. We expect the children are taught pure sounds. That means, for example, the t sound is taught t rather than t. And for example, d is we're not adding any extra us on the end. The reason for this is it helps the children to blend accurately. If we're adding extra us on the end, it becomes much trickier for them. So I'll just play this briefly so you can hear how pure the sounds have to be. And if you ever do need this, it's on our website under curriculum. We have a phonics page where you can make reference to this if you want to come back and watch it another time. I'll just stop there because I think she's getting a bit fed up with the sounds as well. But did you notice how pure she was when she was saying that k sound? It wasn't k, it was a pure k. And that's how we teach the children at school as well. And we ask that you support that too at home. And if you ever need a reminder, like I said, it's on our website too. So what happens during a phonics lesson at PDA? So to begin with, the children are introduced to the sound orally. So we're going to, don't worry, you don't have to join in. We're going to have a look at the O sound today. So I would, within class, say the sound first and ask the children to repeat O, 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 O. The children are then shown the picture side, which gives them a phrase to help them remember the sound. So this one is below the snow. This really helps the children to remember which sound is which, and it also helps them massively when they come to write and apply the sound too. It's amazing at how many children will hear the sound and think, oh, blow the snow. They'll make reference to this rhyme, which is great. They then also hear the sound in different words. So blow, snow, slow, show, no, blow, blow. And then after they've heard the words and they've seen the phrase and picture, they're then shown the grapheme, which are the letters that make up that sound O. The children then practice writing the sound. So on their whiteboard, they'll write the grapheme, the sound O. They'll then apply the sound to reading. And when we read a word, we follow a clear success criteria. So the first step is to spot special friends. The next step is to Fred talk. And then we read the word. I know I'm probably talking gibberish and you're thinking, what is Fred talk? What are special friends? Don't worry, I'm going to come on to that next. I'm just going to give you a brief overview now and we'll go in depth into that in the next slide. And then the children apply the new sound that they've learned in spelling. So we ask the children again to say the word they are wanting to spell. We then use our Fred fingers. So for example, if we are going to write snow, we would say snow, snow. We'd say it quite a lot of times so the children have heard all the sounds. We then use our Fred fingers to count the sounds out. So s, n, o. The children then pinch the sounds, s, n, o, and then they write it on their whiteboards. So that's a brief overview of what happens during the lesson. The children revisit all the sounds that they've already know, they're then taught a new sound, and then they apply that new sound to reading and writing. So green words. Green words are phonetically decodable words with the sound that we have taught the children. So I've got a few examples here. We've got low and blow, and on the screen we've got mouth and white. Like I said, when we are reading with the children, especially the green words, or when we're reading a book together, we expect the children to follow this success criteria, and this allows them to become accurate readers. We expect the children to spot special friends. Now, special friends are 2 or 3 letters that make one sound. So on the screen in mouth, you can see that the ow sound, the O and the U, are a special friend because they're 2 letters making one sound, and the sound at the end, the T and the H, are also a special friend. We have a special friend in white as well. The W and the H are making the W sound, and then the I and the E are the split digraph making the I sound. So we expect the children to spot special friends first. So if we look at the word below, we would ask the children spot the special friend, and they would say out loud, O. Then Fred Talk is saying each individual sound out loud. So O, and then we would say Fred Talk, B, U, O, and then the children then read that out loud by blending it all together below. One more time. So we spot the special friend, O, Fred Talk, B, U, O, below. And the same again. So we'd spot the special friend, say it out loud, O, Fred Talk, U, O, read the word below. Once children are used to that and they are becoming more accurate in their reading, we then ask the children to Fred in their head. So Fred Talk is orally saying the sounds out loud. Fred Talk is, Fred in your head is doing that in your head. You may notice at times children might nod or they might mouth the sounds. That's okay, but as we progress, we expect the children to just completely do it in their head. So for example, again, we would have these green words, and we would point and encourage the children to spot the special friends. However, they would now be doing that in their head. And then when we move it forward, we'd expect them to read below, and the same for low. So spot the special friends, low. The children are doing all of that in their head. Again, as the children progress, we then turn the green words into white words, which then look like this. The white words have no sound buttons on whatsoever, and we don't want the children to become dependent on those. And like when we looked back at the stages of development in reading at the beginning, the children are then moving on to that more automatic stage at this point. We're developing their fluency by doing this. So we've taken away the sound buttons, and we then expect the children to speedy read these. So we would fly through them quite quickly, and they would go low, below, and we've worked through a set of white words. So there's a specific process we follow when we teach the children to read, and we follow the success criteria of spot special friends, Fred Talk, and then read the word. And we also follow the stages of Fred Talk out loud, Fred in your head, and then speedy reading. Sometimes you may get a note in reading diaries or a target of Fredding in your head. Don't think, what on earth is that? Always ask us if you're a bit confused, but what it is we're encouraging the children to do their sounding out in their head, moving towards fluency. We then also have red words within our scheme, and red words are tricky words or common exception words, and they are using sound spellings that are less common. And when we teach the children, we always draw their attention to the tricky part in the word. So for example, if we were teaching the red word was at the top of the screen, the tricky part in that word is the at in the middle. So if we used our Fred Talk, we would go w, at, was, and that's an alien word, it's not a real word. So we would draw the children's attention to the at, and it's actually making the o sound in was. So we'd go w, ot, was. And that because we've taught the children that particular red word, we can see a pattern in watch and want. In all of those words, the a is making the o sound. So we would teach the children those words too, and make a point of addressing the fact that in that word, the a isn't making the a sound, it's making the o sound. And we would draw the attention to the children of all the tricky parts in those red words. So we're giving them a really secure and strong knowledge and understanding of our sound system. So we may send home red words, and we ask that you support that too, that we draw the attention to the tricky part, and we can then apply it not just to that one word, but to many other words too. Briefly at the start, we mentioned that we regularly assess the children. It is done in a very laid back, low key manner. The children are never, it's nothing to prepare the children for. They're never stressed by it. It's just something that we do regularly, and they're very much used to it. And it just means we can make sure that the children are making progress, and we can intervene if we needed to in case children aren't making the expected progress that we would like to see. What will happen at that assessment point is that you will always be sent home an assessment update. We will send home a little sheet that has focus sounds highlighted on them for you, and maybe a next step, which might be to Fred talk out loud, or Fred in your head, or Speedy read those green words. From that assessment, we will also upload some supporting videos for you to use on Shobi as well. Those videos are lesson videos for each of the sounds that your child might be finding it more difficult to recognise or apply in words and reading. Feel free to utilise those at home if you wish to support that. Also, for those children that that may have not made the progress we expect to see, we will also give them a daily one-to-one session as well. That lasts for 5 minutes, and it's a little and often approach for those tricky sounds that they're finding difficult to recognise or blend. And that happens, like I said, every day for 5 minutes, because we find that little and often approach is really good for addressing those small gaps. Some key vocabulary, because I think I've maybe mentioned a few things there and you're thinking, what on earth is blending, Fred talk, Fred in your head? Just to briefly go back over that, just so that you fully understand. And if you ever think, what on earth does this mean? Either ask a teacher, or like I said, there is a parent phonics guide on our curriculum page for phonics that you can download, and it has all the information and this vocabulary there. So Fred is the frog that helps us to learn our sounds in our lessons. A phoneme is the sound that a letter has. So for example, the letter S, the phoneme is S. The grapheme is the letter for that sound. So the grapheme is the S. Special friends are either 2 letters or 3 letters that work together to make one sound, like sh and ch. And then segment means splitting up the words into their sounds, which we can then blend to read. So blending is putting all the sounds together to read the word. Fred fingers are the sounds that we count out when we spell and apply our sounds that we know to spelling. So for example, if we were wanting the children to spell cat, we would say, use your Fred fingers, k, a, t, and then they would then pinch their fingers as they write their word. Fred talk is sounding out each of the green words, or the words the children are reading out loud. Each sound. Fred in your head is sounding out but in your head, so we're moving towards fluency. And then the green words are the phonetically decodable words with the sounds that the children are being taught in school. And then the red words are those trickier words which have the very uncommon spellings of the sounds, but we always make sure we address the tricky part of those. That's a brief overview of our vocabulary. The sounds we teach in school are split into 3 different sets. So we have the set 1 sounds, which are the initial sounds that the children will learn as they join us in reception. We then have the set 2 sounds. So we have some special friends in set 1, but then as we progress to set 2 and set 3, we have all the sounds in there are special friends, and set 3 sounds are those alternative spellings of the sounds that we already know, and that's where we introduce those split digraphs as well. There is a phonics screener, and this normally happens at the end of the year 1 year, around June time, and children in year 2 will also take the phonics check again if they didn't achieve the required result in year 1. It's a 5 to 10 minute phonics assessment. The children read a variety of real words and alien words. The reason the children read alien words is because they are completely unknown to them, and it's really making sure that they can apply the sounds they know. We go through a lot of green words within school, so it just makes sure that they've not remembered a word they've already seen. So an alien word is completely new combination of sounds for them to apply their knowledge to, and it's completely low key. There's nothing to prep for, there's no pressure on the children, like I said, it's 5 to 10 minutes within school, and the children are so used to applying their sounds, it's just another activity for them, and it's treated that way. It's nothing for them to worry about or for you guys at home to stress about either or prepare the children for. Because of COVID-19 and the lockdown, there are some changes to that phonics screener. So the children in year 1 last year didn't sit the screener in June. That is now delayed until the autumn term of year 2. So this autumn term, after October half term, the children will sit their phonics screener in year 2. That's last year's year 1. And then the current year 1 are due to set their phonics screener in June as normal next year. And that brings us on to what happens after phonics. So as the children progress through the sounds and they become very secure in their phonics knowledge and they are able to apply those sounds, we're then moving on to that final stage of reading development. And as a school, we have devised a phonics to fluency program that we've put together in school and we use now across school. It's a research-based approach and it's our next step to fluency after phonics. What you'll find is the children can be quite robotic with their Fred talk, and we want to really encourage them to move towards fluency, and this bridges that gap for them. So the children within their group, within Key Stage 1, those children that are at this stage will have their phonics to fluency session at the same time as the phonics lessons. And the children read one book, and it's the same book every day, each week. And the reason for that is the more the children are exposed to words, the stronger those letter clumps, the orthographic mapping is in their mind. So it really makes them really secure in their reading and developing their fluency. Fluency isn't just reading quickly, it's also understanding what you've read and having prosody and expression when you read too. So during those sessions, the children will hear a high quality adult model that demonstrates the correct prosody and expression, so that the children then, when they come to read it themselves during echo reading or choral reading, where they read all together at the same time, they can then apply the same prosody and expression. The children then at the end of the week perform their story, applying all that they know. During those sessions as well, we also identify vocabulary within the book that the children can then learn. This also aids their comprehension too. So it's a really great scheme that we offered the children after they're securing their phonics sounds and their phonics lessons, and it's bridging that gap from that robotic Fred talk to then that fluent reading. So then how can you support phonics at home? So each week that you'll be updated on the sounds that the children have learned that week, and so we just suggest establishing a routine where you can practice those sounds at home. You might want to write them out on post-its, hide them around the house. They can become passwords for doors, things like that, where you can make it fun. Read every day with the children. We can't stress that enough. It doesn't have to be a full book, it could be a couple of pages, but please make sure you try and read with your child every day. Have fun with Fred talk, so you might want to tell your children it's time for b-e-d, or please can you go and get your oat. Have fun with it around the house and use it as much as you can. When you're reading with your child, please and then how you can support reading at home. So again, establish a routine where you can maybe read at the same time or read before bed. Again, please read every day, little and often. Sometimes it doesn't have to be your child reading to you, you might read to them, but we do ask that you do some reading every day. Please pick up vocabulary when you're reading with your child, any new words that you might come across that you might not be aware of, or you might find a simple word like big that you might encourage your child to think of some other words that could be used instead of that word, really developing their vocabulary as you read with them. Encourage the correct prosody, so an expression. So as children come across punctuation, you'll encourage them to use the correct expression at an exclamation mark, a question mark, pausing at a comma or a full stop. And then comprehension, as your child reads the book at the end, once they've finished, asking them questions to make sure they've understood what they've read. Again, in the phonics guide handout online, you can have a look. If you scroll down to the end, there is a section on book talk, and it gives you some ideas of questions and discussions you might have once you've finished a book. And again, we're focusing on fluency. So the books the children send home are the ones that they can easily access, and they're to help them build up that fluency. So we do, if a child has maybe read all the books within that colour, we do then expect children to go back and reread them too. And we ask that you encourage that at home as well, because that will in turn increase their fluency and help them develop towards becoming a fluent reader. And that brings me on to reading books and the books that your children will have at home. So all the reading books we have in school are phonetically matched to the sounds that the children know. So that means the reading books they have match the sounds that they've learned within class, or the sounds that they already know. So we have on the left-hand side here, we've got the Read, Write, Ink phonics books. These will come home every Friday, and they'll have one of those a week. These are chosen by the staff in school, so they're really tailored to the sounds that we want your child to practice within those books. We then have the Oxford Reading Tree books, which are the ones in the middle. These again are phonetically matched to the sounds your child knows. However, the children choose these themselves. And that's to allow them to develop that love of reading and being able to make their own choices with the books that they would like to read and that they have a preference for. So we've got two books that will be coming home, the Read, Write, Ink phonics books, which will come home once a week. And then we have the Oxford Reading Tree ones that will be, the children will choose themselves, and they'll be changed twice a week. We also have now an ebook library with the Read, Write, Ink phonics books. You may have received an email to say that your account has been set up. The children have also come home with their very own logins, and this can be utilised. So if your child maybe has to have a period of remote learning at home, the children will be able to have access to reading books on that platform. But also, especially in reception in year 1, we will start to utilise that with some homework activities too. So I'm just going to stop sharing this screen now so you can then see what that looks like as you access it at home. Just bear with me. So like I said, all your children will now have a login for this site. The school code you enter at the top here, and then you would enter your child's username and password at the bottom. And then you'd click login if it wants to work for us tonight. When you log in at this moment, your child's teacher won't have uploaded anything at the moment, and if they use this for homework, they will let you know. So when you sign in, you'll then click on the homework section, and this will then take you to the task that your child's teacher has set for your child. So if you, like I said, maybe are using this to read a reading book at home, you can see here, there's a reading book here. You would read the ebook, you would open it up, and then that then gives you access to the book. If it wants to take its time tonight, there we go. And you could work through this like you would a normal book at home. While that's loading, I'm just going to click the next one so that it should be. Promise you this will work for you guys at home. It doesn't want to play tonight, but it will then open the reading book for you then to work through. There's also then a quiz at the end, which we would encourage your child to complete as well. And then there is then, if your child comes home, for example, with the actual paper copy of a phonics book on a Friday, for example, this pink one, Scruffy Ted, your child's class teacher may set online the quiz that's linked to that storybook. So you would then click on the quiz, open the activity, and then you would work through that quiz after reading that book at home together. Unfortunately, oh no, it's working. So you would work through here, it's asking the children to listen to a sound. So you would click play, and then you would click the sound that you can hear. Unfortunately, oh, it's just loaded now. You would click the sound that you could hear in the play button there, and then work through the quiz. like I said, if your child's class teacher is using that as homework, they will let you know when that's been assigned for them, and you would just log in through the login like we've shared at home today. There we go. And then that moves us on to reading records. I know reading records can be a struggle at times because you might get to them and think, oh, what do I have to write? What's expected to write? We are using Shobi now as our online reading record. And there's I want to draw your attention to a few things that you might be able to make reference to when you are uploading anything onto that reading record. The first thing you might want to talk about is word reading itself. So you might say something like, Sam really used his Fred talk out loud. We were really impressed with how he applied his sounds. You might say that Charlie was really trying with his Fred in his head tonight. Or you might even let us know if they struggled recognising a particular sound. So, for example, Sophie struggled to recognise ch and apply ch. You then might want to make reference to your child's comprehension. So Annie could retell the story to us after she'd read the book. And you might say something like, Regan read and then was able to answer simple questions after about the story that he'd read. You might want to make reference to their fluency. So they used, for example, punctuation, and they were able to use expression when they got to an exclamation mark or a question mark, or they were able to pause at a comma or a full stop. And then you might also make reference to their attitude and interest. So they were really eager to read the story tonight, and they love this story because. The benefit of Shobi as well is that you can also complete a voice note. So you may want to actually record your child reading and upload that to Shobi as well as a voice note. The reading records will be checked weekly by staff in school and will respond to those on there. And if you aren't familiar with Shobi or you're unsure, just please let us know and we can show you how to access that reading record and upload any content that you might want to. So that brings me to the end of our evening. So if anybody does have any questions that they may want to ask, I feel like I've shared lots of information with you this evening. Feel free to ask questions, unmute yourself. And yeah, thank you very much for tonight. I hope you found it useful, and feel free to ask any questions if there is any.
I think it was so comprehensive that's why you've not got any. Genuinely, it was brilliant, Jo. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
And of course, everyone can have the pleasure of watching this back on the recording whenever you want. So we'll be sharing this via the school YouTube account and via our website as well. So you can always dip back in another time later in the year or in future years too. What I might just do, Mr. Cox, before we go, I'll just share the web page on our site so that you can see where the phonics section is. So it's just under curriculum, and the parent phonics guide is just at the end there with those speed sounds as well, if you might want to go back and listen to those.
Thank you. no
problem.
I'm gonna have to watch it about 10 times, I think, but yeah, thank you.
No problem. Or if you do ever have any questions, please just ask us at the door. We'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. That was great. Take care.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.